Hello guys, welcome. It's a Sunday afternoon, and I'm gonna be doing another movie review. I'm filming this ahead of time because, after all, might as well. And I did the same thing for Jaws as well. So I'm doing the most voted on thing on my votes. So yeah, I'm gonna be starting off the Lord of the Rings franchise on my movie review. I was planning on doing it in a couple months, but I guess might as well do it now. Before I do so, I'm going to show off my releases that I have for it. Here's my Blu-ray of the 3 movies. I have these a bunch of DVDs from Lord of the Rings. We have this full screen box set. I have these 2 limited edition DVDs. We have the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring limited edition. The Rings, the Two Towers. Oh man, neck. Then I have this one ever since I was little, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, extended box set. Always loved that one. Then for stuff like the Hobbit trilogy, like the old stuff, this is the only standalone Hobbit movie I have. This one's the Blu-ray, the actual cut. And then I have this Blu-ray theatrical cut trilogy. And I have this, which I've watched these a million times. This was the only one left when I got this on Amazon. Before I stopped going on Amazon, this was one of the last things I bought. And this was like $100. So, this is the extended box sets of the Hobbit movies. So yeah. But today I'm going to be talking about Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. I have a book of The Fellowship of the Ring. It's the only Lord of the Rings book I have. So, man, my neck. Okay. Let's talk about one of the greatest movies of all time now. Fellowship of the Ring. So, this movie, it's an excellent film. It's an excellent film, very well crafted, worth watching if you've never seen it. And The Fellowship of the Ring has a lot to do with, it seems like medieval times, in a way. It's kind of like where you got the kings and queens and all that. Well, it's just amazing. It's an amazing story that is larger than life, I guess you could say. It's like one of those types of movies that it's perfect in every way. I gotta say that. It gives you the actual feel of what it feels like to be there and stuff like that. So, let's get started. The movie of The Fellowship of the Ring goes back in like an origin story, kind of like a backstory of how the rings were created. Sauron created these rings, and there was one that he created more powerful than the others. He put it on before he went into battle, and right after he killed Isildur's father, right after he killed Isildur's father, Isildur cut off his hand, and all of his fingers came off, in which one of his fingers held the ring, in which, when he picks up the finger just disintegrates in his hand, and he has the ring. So, but he was too, blinded by power that he took the ring and kept it for himself, in which, later on, you see him walking a path in which he gets attacked on the path, and he is using the ring. And in the extended version, there's more to the scene where he crawled away from the scene and he crawled into the water, in which the ring slipped off his fingers in the water, and he got shot by orcs. So, and the ring was lost ever since. But years later, like 20 years or something like that later, Gollum finds it, in which Gollum uses it, and it corrupts his mind and stops him from aging. And then about several years later, Bilbo Baggins finds it in the cave, and he takes it for himself. In which, pretty sure right there it brings it to present day, and we are brought to the Shire, in which the Shire is like this beautiful town, like a small little town for the hobbits and everything, and in which the whole opening scene of the extended version is the origin, of course, then the scene where it shows the hobbits and everything, and there's a lot more to do with the hobbits. They give a lot more backstory behind the hobbits, and that's why the extended version is the best. And after that, every single time, there's always somebody knocking on Bilbo's door, in which Bilbo is the kind of person who's independent and peaceful, who wants his own space and everything from everybody else. So he always tells Frodo to get the door, which Frodo is his nephew, in which Frodo, I'm pretty sure, lost his parents, and closest person he can go to was his Uncle Bilbo, which of course. But Frodo is a more person who went out into like the wildlife, and he'd go wherever he'd want, just where he can be peaceful to either read a book or talk to somebody, talk to his friends and stuff like that. So, and currently he was waiting for Gandalf to arrive, in which Gandalf is supposed to come there because it's Bilbo's birthday, in which Frodo meets Gandalf at like this area where he convicts him of being late, and Gandalf tells him that he can be whenever he wants to be. So then they start going to the Shire. They like talking and everything, and then apparently they're saying that Gandalf has been known by many things and everything. One of them was Disturber of the Peace, and he also says that Bilbo has been acting strange lately, and Gandalf is a little suspicious about it. And eventually, Frodo leaves, and Gandalf goes to Bilbo, in which he immediately he stops at the door, knocks on the door. Of course, why am I saying that? Either way, he goes to Bilbo's house, and in which Bilbo is resistant at first, and then Gandalf says something. He's just like, no. Bilbo's just like, he doesn't want anybody in his house and everything, so. But Gandalf says, what about an old friend? And immediately he lets him in. They have some tea, and they talk over basically what's going on and stuff like that. And Gandalf hears Bilbo say that he's like not feeling so well. He's like really thin, and when he says that, he's like Gandalf knows because he sees Bilbo reaching into his pocket, and he's like a little suspicious about what he has in his pocket. He doesn't ask anything though. He doesn't say anything about it. In which somebody knocks on his door, and Bilbo reveals that he does not want to be there anymore, and that he wants to go somewhere else. He wants to go on an adventure again, like old times kind of thing, and he wants to see the mountains again, and he misses it. So I'm pretty sure then we're brought to the party after, in which in the extended version of the movie we get to hear that Bilbo feels bad about his parents and everything, that he took him in because of how helpless he was, and he knew that he wouldn't survive out in the world, kind of like that thing. And we're introduced to the troublesome Merry and Pippin, in which they're messing around with fireworks, in which they have to pay back Gandalf by washing dishes. just because they took his fireworks and used his most expensive one. So either way, we're now brought to like the. You know, it'd be much easier if I looked at the chapter list that comes with the DVD, because now I'll remember the entire scene. Yeah, I'm sorry guys, it's much easier when I do this, because if I look at the scene, I know which scene it is. I'm a nerd like that. Okay. So the next scene of the movie features Bilbo giving his speech and everything, and eventually the speech gets really strange when he's like saying that he says something really weird. I forgot what it was. He was like, I know half of you as much as you like, and half of you I don't know that you don't deserve. Something like that. He says something really weird. It's really weird and cryptic. It's weird. I can't really say the whole thing because it's just, I can't say it. It's just something I can't say. Either way, Bilbo puts on the ring and disappears, surprises everybody, goes back to his house to grab his things, in which Gandalf's already waiting for him there, because he knows about the ring, and he asks him to leave the ring there. Bilbo goes crazy, and Gandalf stands up to him, and Bilbo, he doesn't know what's going over him, what's come over him and everything, and what happens next is that, shockingly, he drops the ring at the door and leaves, in which, of course, Bilbo feels free now. So the next scene features Frodo. In the extended version, he's at the bar and everything, like, with Merry and Pippin and everything, and they like talking, and actually I'm pretty sure this was in the theatrical cut too, so it might have been in the extended cut. I mean, I've seen the extended cuts so many more times than the original cut, so I know they do mention in one of the versions that just keep your nose out of your own business. Like, Frodo is like one of those people that like goes around and talks to everybody, but when they talking to Frodo, they're like saying, oh, unless you want to be like Bilbo, don't go around and sound crazy. Basically, like, don't go around and go on a big adventure or something. So then there's that whole thing, and then Frodo goes back to the house, and did I completely skip ahead? I completely skipped ahead. I completely forgot all about one part of the movie. That's the reason why I have this chapter list. I just remembered chapter 6 on the DVD is the one moment where, after Bilbo leaves, Frodo arrives, and Frodo notices the ring is the first thing. So then Gandalf's still in the house, and he's like trying to think of it because he's thinking of the words that Bilbo said, in which Bilbo said he says it's mine, my own, my precious, like that kind of thing, in which he knows he heard it before, because if you watch The Hobbit, wait a minute, did they show Gandalf in The Hobbit talking about that? Or did he hear about it? No, it was through the Isildur text. He goes to Minas Tirith to go look at like the information on Isildur, in which right before he tells Frodo to keep it secret, keep it safe, in which he leaves, and that's the reason why I was saying before, like, the whole part with the bar, and then that's right in between those moments, and Frodo arrives back at the house, and Gandalf's already there, but he's hiding in the darkness because he knows the power of the ring, and he knows that it's really difficult, it's really dangerous and everything. So after putting it in the envelope, he grabs the envelope and burns it, in which the only way you can see the lettering on the ring is through the fire. So he grabs it out of the fire and shows it to Frodo, in which Frodo grabs the ring and he looks at it for a second. He doesn't see anything at first, and then it appears, and right when Gandalf is relieved, his face goes completely differently. It's completely different. So he knows that he's got the Sauron ring. So he tells him the whole story about how Isildur got the ring in the war. He tells him the whole thing, and he hears somebody outside. It turns out to be Sam, who's Frodo's one of his best friends. Probably his best friend, because after all, he does save him several times in the franchise. So Sam's Frodo's best friend, and he's just cutting grass under the window, in which it's very hard to believe because he was right there at the scene when he was talking about the whole thing with Sauron. So, and in that moment, Gandalf comes up with a plan for him to go with Frodo to the to get to Rivendell, which is the home of the elves. But first, they have to get to the Prancing Pony, which is in I forgot where they said it was part of. Either way, it's not. It doesn't really matter. They have to get to like this place, and in the woods, they're like going across the land and everything, trying to get there. They get to the end of the Shire, which is a whole cornfield, and that's when they run into Merry and Pippin, in which Merry and Pippin are stealing vegetables from this guy named Farmer Maggot, which is a really weird name for him, but whatever. That's what I mean. J.R.R. Tolkien was a freaking legend for writing this, so it doesn't really matter. Either way, it was stealing vegetables, and they got involved with the whole story and everything. And what happens? They ended up being there at the scene, and at that time, Frodo ended up going along the path, and he does feel like this sense that something bad's gonna happen, in which that's when the ring wraiths, as an Nazgul, appear right before them, and they hide behind this log before it sees them. And what happens is that I guess you could say they trick the Nazgul at first. They know that they're hunting them down somehow, but they don't know why, which we all know why, and it's because of the ring, in which they decide, give me a sec. Either way, they escape them, and of course, they run to them later on in the night, and they get chased onto Buckleberry Ferry, which brings them to the Prancing Pony, which is like a lift, a water lift kind of thing, and they are at the Prancing Pony. They're getting stared down by this guy in the dark, in a dark corner. You don't see who he is, and right when he does so, one of them, I'm pretty sure it was Pippin, that accidentally gives up Frodo's identity, which he's supposed to keep secret. So Frodo goes over to see him, basically tell him to shut up, kind of thing, and he accidentally falls, and he throws the ring up in the air, and it lands on his finger, in which he goes completely invisible, and which leads the Nazgul to them right there at that point. So he has to take the ring off, and immediately the guy in the dark grabs him and brings him to a room. It's revealed to be Strider at the moment, in which that's what they call him, and in which when he does so, the others, Sam, Merry, and Pippin, think that Frodo's getting hurt, in which he grabs Frodo and brings him to a room and tells him that he shouldn't fear him, that they can't wait for Gandalf anymore, because Gandalf, earlier in the movie, he went to go see Saruman, and Saruman revealed to be the bad guy at the moment. He revealed to be the villain, and what happens is that Gandalf got injured, everything off screen. We don't get to see him at that moment. In which, well, he didn't get injured off screen. They showed it earlier in the movie. It's just I'm going back and forth, and I can't really keep up. I'm trying to go along with the story, and I was just playing. I was reading the whole story with Sam and Frodo and Merry and Pippin. Those are pretty much the main characters at the moment. But otherwise, Strider brings them into like the wild, basically. That's what he calls it. He's just like, and when they're doing so, Saruman is like, he's like trying to build an army that is gonna be like the craziest army ever, trying to be at least. And what happens is that right after that moment where he's like saying, "Oh, I want an army suitable for Mordor," or something like that. That's the Sauron's talking to him and everything, and that's what he says to him. And he tells the orcs that we have work to do, and then that scene's over. We go into the next scene where Frodo, Sam, and Merry and Pippin are camping out of this area where it was like, it used to be like this huge place that was very important, but at that moment they're staying there and everything. Frodo's trying to sleep, and stupidly Sam, Merry, and Pippin are cooking food, in which they have to put it out, and what happens is that the ring wraiths are right there at that part. They're right there, and they get surrounded by the Nazgul ring wraiths, and in which they try to fight and everything, but all of them get thrown aside until Frodo just drops his sword and tries to put the ring on, in which during that moment Frodo gets stabbed by one of the Nazgul, in which Strider comes to the rescue and fights off the Nazgul, and then they try to bring Frodo further, and they end up getting to one part in the woods where they try to find an herb that stops the bleeding, and which right there they find it, but they also find an elf who surprisingly is the fastest rider in the land and everything. So what happens is that when they do so, they try to bring Frodo to her, and she's just like, okay, I'll bring him. Everything. Aragorn says that he'll ride, because they don't have a horse and they can get there, but she's the fastest rider, so you can outrun them. So she takes Frodo and tries to make it to Isengard. No, not Isengard. Isengard's a bad place. Rivendell. Tries to take him to Rivendell, in which at that moment she nearly makes it there until she crosses this river, and she uses this spell because the Nazgul are right across the river. They won't cross the river until they start to, in which she uses this spell to create this huge tidal wave, and it washes them out, and in which right at that moment Frodo nearly drifts into darkness until she brings him right in time to her father, who's in charge of the elves and everything at Rivendell, in which he helps him get better, in which as soon as he does so, as soon as he gets better, he notices that he's in Rivendell and everything, so he made it. And Gandalf's there, and he reveals to him that when he went to Saruman showed him his true colors, and put him on top of the tower, in which he's like talking to him and everything. That he shouldn't have turned him down and everything. He made a deal with him to help him, everything, help him for Sauron kind of thing. And Gandalf turned him down, and he basically told him that you can choose life or death and everything, and he he can talk to animals. He can talk to bugs and everything too. He can talk to anything he wants because he's a wizard. So he talks to like this moth or something, and then the moth brings like an eagle, in which the eagle carries him away because he's just like, he flies away on the eagle. And then Sauron says that you chose death and everything. And in the next part, that's what the whole reveal was, everything. And he doesn't tell it to Frodo, but we see it, and he's like basically saying, "No, never mind," kind of thing. And everybody else arrives. We get to introduce to Legolas, Gimli. We also get introduced to Boromir, in which all of them are from different pieces of the world. Like Legolas is from the other area with the elves, like, which is a more dangerous area where the elves are. And Gimli is from the Dwarf Kingdom, and Boromir is from Gondor, which his father wants him to get the ring and bring it back to Gondor to guard in, like, deep inside of Minas Tirith. And of course, his father is the steward of Gondor, which we get introduced to him in the third one, and how much of a dick he is. But either way, they all arrive. Then Fastest Rider's father, I forget the father, like, starts talking to Gandalf and everything about what can be done with the ring and everything, that the ring can't be there. He brings up more backstory about how during the battle of, well, the battle with Sauron, he was there, in which of course we do see him in the very beginning of the movie too. So, but we see more of him in the scene where Isildur, as soon as he gets the ring, the father actually tells him to follow him into Mount Doom, in which he goes into Mount Doom and he tells him to throw it into the fire, and he tells him no, and then he leaves with the ring, in which that was the mistake that was made. In which, of course, right as soon as that happens, everything goes wrong. And in that moment, Strider is just sitting there in like this area where the sword was, where the sword is, that is Silver's sword that got shattered. He's basically sitting there smoking his pipe, because this movie, almost everybody in this franchise is a stoner. That's the sad truth, but whatever, I don't care. I mean, if I just in the future, if I smoked, I wouldn't blame them. So yeah, but either way, the sword was broken a long time ago, in which that was like the sword from the war and everything. And Boromir comes in. He's basically examining the sword. He's like basically all nosy and everything. He's like looking at the sword. The sword's sharp and everything. He feels the sword, and he cuts himself in the process. And then he's like, he sees Strider, and he says, "It's nothing but a broken heirloom," in which he drops the sword on the ground. Strider goes over to pick it up, and he puts it back, in which the fastest rider talks to him. I can't remember the name of the fastest rider. I'm thinking Ewa, but that's Avatar. Man. Arwen? I think that was Arwen. Is it Arwen? Arwen. That's her name. Arwen. She starts talking to Strider, and she has like this moment where she gives him her like her necklace that gives her eternal life and everything. She says that she'd rather be a mortal person. She'd rather not want him to die and her to be the last one, because she doesn't want to be in a world where, you know, like the world at the moment is everything went to shit pretty much already. So she doesn't want that to happen. She doesn't want to be there when everything gets worse, which is understandable. So she gives him her eternal life thing, and they have this meeting the next time, and which right at this moment of the meeting, they're like talking about what should be done with the ring. Boromir says that they should bring it to Gondor and everything, which they can use it against the enemy. Strider can't and everything. So then, and immediately Boromir challenged. Basically, he says, "What does a man know about this?" kind of like thing, like and everything. And then apparently Legolas reveals that Strider isn't any nobody. Instead, he's Aragorn, who's the heir of the king, in which the king a long time ago, he has Isildur's blood flowing through his veins, which he's the next in line of the king of Gondor. Basically, he's the next in the bloodline, in which Boromir's father shouldn't be in charge, and it should be Aragorn. So all of a sudden, Gimli tries to destroy the ring with his axe, but the axe shatters on the stone, which the ring is unharmed, and he says that nothing can kill it. Nothing can destroy it, I should say. In which, they're like, the only thing that can destroy it is where it came from, Mount Doom. They have to bring it into Mount Doom in order to destroy it. In which, when they get there, they have to go into Mount Doom and drop it into the fire, in which, they're like, we need a group to go in there, like a fellowship. And, the people that go, Frodo, Gandalf, you have Aragorn, Boromir, Legolas, Gimli, Sam, Merry, and Pippin. You have 9 companions. So those 9 companions, they go to bring the ring to Mount Doom. Alright. So before they leave, Bilbo's there, in which earlier in the scene where they arrive at Rivendell, Frodo reunites with Bilbo. He basically gives him his story to read and everything. He's like finished his story that he was writing at the beginning of the book. Well, at the beginning of the movie, in the extended version, we see him writing a book, in which it's There and Back Again, A Hobbit's Tale by Bilbo Baggins, in which he finished his book. And when he did so, Bilbo gave him a type of armor made from dragon scales called mithril, which he puts it on, and Bilbo notices that he has the ring around his neck. So Bilbo wants to hold his ring for the last time. Bilbo breaks and goes crazy at him, in which, right when he does so, he basically says that he's sorry about everything that he's done, and it shouldn't have been done, and stuff like that, and that was the last thing he said before he left and everything. So then the next scene, they set out, and they go through like this. They start going through like the terrain and everything. They start climbing the mountains and stuff like that, and they basically having like this moment where they're just having this moment of peace. They're saying, "Oh, we can go through the mines of Moria, or we can go through the passive Cardress, something like that." Cardress, I think that Terrace, something like that. Either way, it's like the mountains with it's like covered in snow and it's all winter terrain kind of thing. It's just like, oh, we can go there, or we can go through the mines of Moria, which is down below, in which they go through the Pass of Terrace, something like that. I don't know how to say it. I don't know. Either way, they saying that, and they go through there. Frodo drops the ring when he falls, and Boromir grabs the ring. He's like staring at it for a second. Aragorn demands it back to him, and he notices how he is right away. And then in the next scene, they go through the mountains still, and eventually the mountain just starts. Apparently, Saruman puts a like storm. He uses his magic to put a storm over the mountain, in which the storm, it makes it so rocks fall down, snow fall down. They nearly get buried into snow and everything. So then they feel like it's much easier going through Moria, which they go down below. Well, first of all, Gandalf gives Frodo a choice, and Frodo chooses to go through the mines of Moria. And right when he does so, they go into the mines of Moria. But before that, they get attacked by like some squid creature in the water, and the squid creature blocks off the door by just destroying the doorway, in which they spend a good amount of time trying to figure out the passcode to go into the place, because Gandalf does not remember, and it says speak friend to enter, and it's like the Elvish word for friend they have to know, and that was the password, in which right after that squid thing destroys the doorway, they are stuck in the mines of Moria, in which it turns out to be like a tomb. It's not mines, it's tomb, and in which is really dark when you really think about it, because if you've seen the movie, when you see the first Hobbit movie, you start to think about it, that Balin, who was there, who Gimli never stops talking about, it's like his cousin or something like that, or his uncle, I forgot what it was. Either way, he's like saying that he'll give him like a royal welcome kind of thing, but Balin is dead, which he doesn't know that yet. But either way, Balin was one of the characters from the Hobbit movies, in which honestly he's actually one of my favorite characters from the Hobbit movies. He was one of the most supportive characters there were. I mean, he was definitely one of the best characters of the Hobbit. In which I don't hate the Hobbit movies at all. Those movies are actually pretty good. It's not as good as the Lord of the Rings, but it's still pretty damn good. I think so. In which the next scene, they go through the dark and everything, and while they're traveling through the dark, they go up to this point where they don't know which tunnel to go down to. They have 3 different tunnels and everything. Frodo spots Gollum crawling through the caves and everything. So then he's just like questioning him and everything, and Gandalf reveals that he was let go by the people of Mordor. Let him go. All the orcs let him go. They tortured him to the point where he gave up all the information and he let him go. So when they did so, Gollum has been following them for the whole time and everything, and they end up finding Balin's tomb, and they go into it, and they read this thing saying that apparently it's the orcs that are coming and everything, and that they were writing everything that was going on and everything, that they are trapped in the mines and everything with no escape, and the orcs have them surrounded and everything like that. And the next scene, pretty sure it's Pippin that accidentally knocks like some skeleton down a mine shaft, and they hear like these drums like that are just so loud. That I saw this movie in the theaters, right? This was back last year, and This part was so damn loud, it's crazy. It was echoing. I went to go see it in Regal RPX because they brought it back for like a small amount of time. It was like the trilogy and everything. I saw the first one. I didn't get to see the second and third because they were the extended versions, and it was late at night too. So I only got to see the first one because it's 4 hours. Why would I go to see all three of them? And it was an hour away. So yeah, I went an hour away because it's a movie that you gotta see in theaters. It's one of those movies that is like, it's a larger than life movie. I did say that before, but this part was so loud that it was just crazy. Either way, the orcs appeared. They try to smash down the door. The barricade, Legolas, Aragorn barricade the door. Then they're getting ready to. Well, it's Boromir that barricades the door. But either way, they barricade the door. They get into a huge fight scene where they defeat all the orcs that are there in that one moment, and then more of them coming and everything. So they leave. They say they go. They try to get to the bridge of Khazad-dûm, in which they are surrounded at some point, and then all of a sudden they hear this noise and everything, and there's like some red lights, like these, like the color of flames at the end of the hallway and everything, and which all of the orcs just disappear. They don't want to have anything to do with it because they know how dangerous this thing is. And Gandalf reveals it to be a Balrog, in which is like a demon and everything. So they try to get to the bridge and everything, and they get across the bridge. Then Gandalf stands in the middle of the bridge. Alright, here comes the biggest moment of the movie. I'm gonna try to remember the whole entire line that he uses. He's like, I'm a servant of the secret fire, flamer of the wielder of the flame of Anor. The dark power will not avail of you. Something. Flame of Udun, something like that. It's just like, then the Balrog tries to strike him, and which he says, "Go back to the shadows." I know this whole moment. I'm just trying to remember it. And then he gives the most famous line: "You shall not pass." Like that whole line, great line, great line. Amazing moment in which he destroys the bridge halfway, and immediately when he destroys the bridge, the Balrog falls, and the Balrog has like this like flame whip that he has, and he uses it to grab hold of Gandalf's feet, in which he pulls him to the edge, and Gandalf can't hold on, so he falls. In which they are all struck in grief and everything. They're all sad and everything from the whole thing. And did I use the word grief properly? I feel like I don't remember what the meaning of grief means. I don't know why, but I don't. I know the meaning of grief. I'm just trying to think of it. I think I worded it right. Either way, they are sad because of Gandalf. They think he's dead, which, spoiler, he comes back in the second one, and he's in the third one too, so he's in all of them, and he's also in all three of the Hobbit movies too. Either way, Gandalf is he falls and everything. They go into Lothlorien, which is the elvish place in the woods. Which that's where Legolas came from, Lothlorien. I forgot all about that. And they go to stay at the place at Lothlorien. The elves say that they can't stay there and everything. In which they're like, we have the ring and everything. And they're like, you cannot stay here. You have to leave and everything. Then in the middle of the night, well, actually they let him stay, and then in the middle of the night, Galadriel warns Frodo that he shouldn't be, like, he should actually, like, I guess, leave immediately as soon as he can, but he cannot give up. He can't give up. And then he has to get rid of the ring. There's no other way to do it. There's no other way to say it. So, they leave Lothlorien, and they make it down the Great River, in which there's statues of that's the Great River on the cover of this movie, in which is a better picture. I really like the cover of this movie. I just love that artwork. But either way, they make it down the Great River. They make it to like the shore, in which they basically like saying, "Oh, we should camp and everything." Like, no, we can't camp. We have to keep going. The orcs are right behind us and everything, because the orcs are. Saruman created an army early on in the movie, which I kept skipping over. But either way, it was not really important. He created an army named Uruk-hai, in which they're tracking them down right now, and they're being followed. And neck. Either way, during that time, they're like trying to figure it out and everything, what to do. Frodo has walked off to try to find his way and everything, and Boromir finds him and everything, because Frodo and Boromir are not there at that moment. So Frodo's like walking and everything, and Boromir's telling him that he shouldn't be alone and everything, in which that was just a ploy because he wants the ring for himself, because the ring is corrupting him most of all. Out of anybody, the ring is corrupting him, in which he tries to take the ring from him, and Frodo outsmarts him and everything, and he tries to take the ring from him. He fails, and Frodo puts the ring on and goes invisible, in which the Uruk-hai it was a stupid idea, because now he just doomed them all, in which right after that he gets encountered by, right as soon as Frodo takes the ring off, Aragorn's right there, and he basically tempts Aragorn and everything, but Aragorn does not fall for it, in which he's the only one that won't get tempted by the ring, which is actually pretty interesting, because he knows what happened to his father, to his, what happened to his bloodline and everything, so he doesn't want the same thing to happen. So what happens is that Frodo uses the blade that he had, which is the same blade that Frodo had and everything, and the blade glows when there's orcs or goblins nearby, in which the blade is glowing at the moment. So he tells him to run, and Frodo leaves and everything, and Aragorn turns around. He fights off the orcs and everything, because the orcs are right behind him. So he fights them off. Legolas joins the battle, so does Gimli, everything, and Merry and Pippin know that he's like trying to leave, so they distract the orcs, and right when he's trying to do so, Boromir comes to the rescue to save the others, and which Boromir left earlier, because after all, he was kind of devastated that he tried to take the ring from Frodo, because he knew that the ring corrupted him, and he felt bad. So then he comes into battle to try to save them, and then he accidentally gets killed, and in which he gets shot by 3 arrows, if I'm not mistaken. It was 3 arrows that shot him, and at that moment, Aragorn comes to the rescue, fights off the leader, he kills the leader, and they take the other ones, the other hobbits and everything, and when he takes the other ones, I'm trying to remember. Shit. They take the other ones, and Frodo and Sam are just like trying to leave and everything. They go on a boat and everything, but it's only Frodo that leaves at first, in which Sam is just like, he's dedicated to coming with him because Gandalf promised him one thing, and that was to go with Frodo the whole way, in which Sam is dedicated, and which he nearly drowns because of him, and then Frodo saves him, and he tells him that he's not gonna let him go and everything. So then they put Boromir on the ocean, on the Great River, and they push him away, and which of course his father finds him later on, and it's revealed in the third one that his father knows of Boromir's death, in which right there Frodo and Sam make it to the top of a mountain, and Frodo thanks him for being with him, and they continue their journey, and the movie's over. So, I just described the 3-hour movie in under an hour. It's a huge movie. It's hard for me to explain everything, because it was really difficult for me to explain everything. Of course, but honestly, it's worth watching. Now, you can actually watch it on HBO Max if you want to. It's worth it, I'm telling you. It's so much worth it. But watch the extended version. It's so much better, because you get more scenes to it. Even though it's really long, just watch it. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notified from the latest videos. Peace out.